What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Celtics Daily Channel with me, Mike Zakarian, as we're breaking down all things Boston all off season long as we try to get ready for this new season without our guy, Jason Tatum. Now, if you missed the last two episodes, we've been breaking down some potential destinations for Kristaps Porzingis, some potential trade destinations for our guy, Drew Holiday. Now, everybody take a deep breath because today we are going to look at some Jaylen Brown destinations. And like I said in the two videos before, Jaylen, if you somehow come across this video, please, I don't want you to go. I love you as a Boston Celtic, and I want you to retire as a Boston Celtic. But just in case, I tried to find some competitive homes if Brad Stevens tries to pull a trigger on this. Now, normally we have 4 different trade destinations, but Jaylen, I love you so much, I only came up with 3 because the 4th one is I just want you to stay home. Spoiler alert. All right, let's get started. The first one, he's going to reunite with his guy, Ime Udoka. And you'll see a lot of these trade deals will include 3 teams, as I pointed out in previous episodes, because the collective bargaining agreement is so difficult to navigate with so many restrictions on these teams. You kind of need a third team that has some cap flexibility. Shout out the Brooklyn Nets to make these deals happen. So this one is going to have the Boston Celtics, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Houston Rockets. So let's start all with the Rockets side of stuff. The Rockets in this deal are going to get Jaylen Brown, and they're going to get De'Anthony Melton, who I continue to forget is a Brooklyn Net. Now, the Nets on this side of things will get Fred VanVleet, all right, that's going to be, he's got 1 year left on his deal. It's $44 million, and then that will help make the money work. But then it comes off the books for Brooklyn soon after that. They're also going to get Boston's 2030 first-round pick, and they're going to get their own first-round pick back from Houston for 2027 that I believe was involved in those James Harden deals way back when. Now, the Celtics, they are going to get Houston's 2025 first-round pick. So that is pick number 10. They are also going to get Tari Eason. They're also going to get last year's second overall pick in Reed Shepherd. And then the big man, Nick Claxton from the Brooklyn Nets, again, to make all the contracts work. So Celtics get a big man, which they are going to need, and it is Nick Claxton, who's got a couple years left on this deal. I believe it's a total of $70 million, making 27 this year. So that's Nick Claxton, the big guy. Reed Shepherd, who, again, Houston seems to really, really like, even though he only played a handful of minutes last season. That more so has to do with the fact that Ime Udoka is a defensive nut, and if you're not able to defend at a high level, he's not going to put you out there. But Houston's roster was also crazy deep with guys like Jalen Green and then Amen Thompson, who absolutely blossomed. Now, I know if you're thinking we're sending Jaylen Brown to Houston, we must be getting Amen Thompson back. I do believe that Amen Thompson is the only non-negotiable for Houston right now. They are not going to move off of him. But I do like the idea of getting somebody that like Reed Shepherd, who has really high-level talent. And again, I do think Houston is very high on them. I'm not even sure if they'd include him. And then Tari Eason, who I'm a sucker for, I'm a big fan of. And then the 2025 first-round pick. I honestly think we should probably be throwing in another first-round pick here for Houston, but I was so excited that I actually got the trade machine to say this would work that I stopped right there. So let's throw in another first-round pick because I do think if the Celtics are getting rid of, an all-star, all-NBA wing that Houston absolutely needs right now, I think that could go a long way. I do think on the Houston side of stuff and for Jaylen Brown, this is a really comfy fit. I think JB would fit in there really nicely. That's such an upgrade for Houston. When you think about I know he's not the same player as Jalen Green, but that's such an upgrade offensively. Also of Dillon Brooks too, where maybe he's not the same high level defender, but it's not much of a downgrade from Brooks to Jaylen Brown. Probably a better locker room guy as well. Although I don't know, maybe Dillon Brooks's teammates like him a little bit more. I think that would make Houston an immediate contender right away. I don't know if this is my favorite package for the Celtics to get back. What's interesting about this is it gets them another bite of the apple in the first round, right? So they're getting another first-round pick from Houston in this draft, which is supposedly very deep, right? It also, Reed Shepherd and Tari Eason are players that are going to be able to jump in right now. Tari Eason, again, because the Celtics are going to be so thin in their front court, assuming we still lose Porzingis and then one of Luke or Al in this scenario, adding somebody like Tari Eason and Nick Claxton gives you a little bit more depth there. And then I do think Nick Claxton is still going to be a contract that they could continue to flip and continue to make more moves with, where it's not necessarily to me, Reed Shepherd and Tari Eason are the guys that are going to be on the team, not only this year, but years to come. And again, this would be I think it would be a good fit for them this year specifically, with no Jason Tatum, and now you would take Jaylen Brown out of the equation. It also financially, I mean, you're just taking like $300 million off of the books, right? Jaylen Brown is set to make, I believe it is, yes, $49 million with $236 million left on that deal. I also should say Houston getting DeAnthony Melton there. If DeAnthony Melton can stay healthy, is a great addition because he can shoot the three ball and also a high level on ball defender. So that is deal number one. Again, you can just hear it in my voice, right? That I don't want to do this. I want to keep Jaylen Brown there, but again, we got to provide the options because this is the situation we're in right now with Tatum's Achilles looking like a egg falling on the ground. That's the best analogy I could come up with: an egg falling on the ground. Unbelievable. All right, let's go to the alien. What if we sent Jaylen Brown to the San Antonio Spurs, stay in Texas, no state income tax, which everybody likes to say whenever we're talking about Texas or Florida? Once again, the Brooklyn Nets, thank you for coming along in the ride and being interested in this offseason because we have another three-team deal. So let's start. Jaylen Brown. The only thing the Spurs are getting in this entire deal is Jaylen Brown. So JB goes to San Antonio. Brooklyn, on the other side, are going to get Devin Vassell. They're going to get a Celtics 2031 first-round pick. They're going to get pick number 14 from the San Antonio Spurs in this draft, and then a 2031 first-round pick from the Spurs. So one more time. Vassell's going to Brooklyn, 2031 pick from Boston, because we had to send something from Boston to Brooklyn. 2025, this draft, pick 14, and then 2031 first-round pick. So that's giving Brooklyn a ton of assets, plus Devin Vassell, who's got $105 million left on his deal, and is still like a young shooting guard that I'm a big fan of. Now, the Celtics in this scenario, they are going to get a bunch of contracts that they can get off of. Nick Claxton, welcome back. Welcome back, Nick Claxton. You were involved in every single trade deal I come up with. They're also going to get the tiny contract of Jalen Wilson, who's a power forward. He makes only $1.8 million. And again, that's 1 year, and then he's gone. And then CP3, Chris Paul, it's an expiring contract. You can keep him, or you can move him right away after that. But the real money, the real things that we're getting here out of this deal is going to be the second overall pick in this draft. Second overall pick in this draft, welcome, Harper. And then the 2027 first-round pick, not of the San Antonio Spurs, but the Atlanta Hawks. If you remember, the the DeJounte Murray trade, right, that sent him from San Antonio to Atlanta when Atlanta was going to be this great team. Guess what? DeJounte Murray, he's on the Pelicans now. Also, similar injury to Jason Tatum. So that means as long as Atlanta doesn't get all of a sudden very good, the bad news is the East sucks. So maybe the pick's not as juicy as you think, but it's probably a lottery pick, right? So you're basically getting the second overall pick in 2025 and then the 2027 first-round pick from the Atlanta Hawks. Along with CP3, Nick Claxton, and Jalen Wilson, that's just to make the contracts work. I like this one a little bit better because everybody seems to be very excited about the Rutgers guy, Dylan Harper. High-level player. The Spurs keep saying that they don't want to move off of this numbers 2 pick, but I don't know if you saw that Shams report when he was on Pat McAfee. I wouldn't say he went full Windhorse, like why would you do that, or why would they do that? But it was a little something where he just said this was going to be a crazy offseason. He was linking Kevin Durant to the Spurs, so it clearly sounds like the San Antonio Spurs, with Wembanyama coming back, with De'Aaron Fox, the deal that they made, they're kind of ready to win now. They still have a lot of young guys, a former Rookie of the Year, Stephen Castle, so there's a lot of different moves here that could happen with the San Antonio Spurs and a lot of different pieces the Celtics could get. So if they want to include Castle instead of getting rid of all of those picks, that's something they could look at, but for me, I like the idea of getting that second overall pick in the 2027 first. You might be from Atlanta. You might think that's not enough. San Antonio has so many different picks that you can choose from that I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world to just include some other ones. I'm just going to rattle off some of these picks that the Spurs have. You think OKC is deep in picks, which they are, but let's look at this. So Spurs pick 2 and 14 this year. They have a Chicago first round that's somewhat protected in 2026. They've got their own pick in 2026. They've got Atlanta's pick in 27, another protected pick from Chicago in 27. They've got a 2028 actually from the Celtics, which it was from the Derek White pick. You have the San Antonio's 2028, San Antonio's 2029. They've got Dallas's 2030, which honestly, if you want to take a shot at a pick, I know Cooper Flagg's there, so that raises the floor. But what is Anthony Davis looking like in 2030? What is Kyrie Irving looking like in 2030? What is Klay Thompson looking like in 2030? So I think all of those are pretty interesting deals there. All right, let's go to the third one, and this is the New Orleans Pelicans. And this, Jaylen, I'm sorry for including you in this one. Okay, I am. I'm sorry. I don't think you probably want to go down there. That place looks cursed. Not the city of New Orleans, but just the organization. Now, this one I did not include the Brooklyn Nets. You guys can stay home for this one. Don't even worry about this, Brooklyn. This is a two-team deal. Now, initially, when I was like, what if we get Zion back, right? And I think that was short-sighted on my part. I am just a Zion truther. I'm a big fan of him on the court. Off the court, questionable stuff. I don't know if you've seen that tattoo. It makes me uncomfortable, but maybe that's the thing that I need to get more comfortable with, and that's less about Zion. Also, there's some other off-court stuff that I'm not going to tell you to Google, but if you're bored, you could. I really do love watching Zion play. I think he's one of the more exciting basketball players. We talk about Wembanyama being a one of one. I think Zion is in a lot of ways too, because it's very rare in this day and age with the NBA that you can just be the most dominant player on the court offensively without actually shooting the three ball. And that's what Zion does. Like he's like, hey man, I'm going to start on the right and I'm going to finish on the left. Are you cool with that? And he does it every time. He can't stay healthy, so that's why we're not taking him back in this deal. And if you're sending Jaylen Brown to New Orleans, they probably want to keep Zion, because they're going to try to win right now. And I mentioned DeJounte Murray earlier, right? And he's battling that the Achilles injury that he suffered towards the late part of the season. Hopefully he's back the second half of the year. But they do still have C.J. McCollum over there. They got a handful of other guys. Like Trey Murphy was a really solid player for them that broke out a little bit. Some good young guys in Yves Missy and like Jordan Hawkins. Jose Alvarado's still there. Although I believe Jose Alvarado just got, I think, suspended 80 games for like an illegal substance, little PEDs. But you know what? Jose Alvarado, I'm also a short king. Use those PEDs, baby. All right, enough of that. Let's see what the deal is. So Pelicans are just getting Jaylen Brown, and that's it. Now, the Celtics are going to get Bruce Brown back, which Bruce Brown is a $23 million expiring contract. Bruce Brown's probably going to go elsewhere. All right, he's probably not going to still be there. You got Herb Jones. Herb Jones, elite wing defender, big fan of his game. Obviously, massive offensive drop-off from Jaylen Brown to Herb Jones. Defensively, though, a little bit of an upgrade. And then Kelly Olynyk, who's just got 1 year on his deal, and that's to make the money work. But in exchange, we get another first-round pick from this season, the 2025 7th overall pick from New Orleans. Then we get the 2026 first-round pick from the Milwaukee Bucks. I kind of like taking a shot at this right now because there's the rumors that Giannis is going to leave Milwaukee. However, the common sentiment seems that he's actually going to stay there right now. I like the idea of pulling this trigger before we know what Giannis is going to do, because if Giannis somehow does leave Milwaukee, all of a sudden that pick goes from like a fringe lottery pick mid-first round to like, holy crap, this could be a top 5 pick, right? So I like the idea of trying to attack that pick. And then even if Giannis does stay in Milwaukee, I'm sorry, I'm not scared of Giannis and Kyle Kuzma and Gary Trent Jr. and the corpse of Brook Lopez. You know what I'm saying? So like, I still am okay taking a shot at that first round pick. And then I added one more first round swap from 2029 of the Pelicans. So that would be 3 first round picks, essentially. The pick swap of 2029, Milwaukee's 2026, and then New Orleans' number 7 pick in 2025, along with Bruce Brown, Herb Jones, and Kelly Olynyk. So those are the deals there, all right? It is really hard to make a JB move only because it's like $50 million, essentially, a year. A team has to not only have the ability to financially make this work, they also have to be in win-now mode, because you're not trading for Jaylen Brown if you're not going to go out there and win. Like, I was looking at some other situations, like potentially the Sacramento Kings, because we talked about them with Drew Holiday, and then I spent a lot of time trying to figure out a Denver Nuggets move, because I do think Denver's a really interesting team to watch. They've got some good contracts, and like Aaron Gordon only makes like $22 million a year. Christian Brown is still on his rookie deal, so he's only making like $3+ million, and he looks great. And the idea of upgrading for Denver while they still have that Jokic, Jamal Murray core. However, I think if anybody's going to move from Denver, it's somebody like Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. is not going to be in a deal with Jaylen Brown. I was trying to think of something. I was like, would you do Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, and a handful of picks or something to make the Jaylen Brown for Jaylen Brown? Would you do that? And I don't know. It doesn't really make sense timeline wise. All you're really doing is you're like, well, we could be the Celtics and still be competitive, but just not as good and cheaper. How does that feel? It feels bad. So I don't think that could really happen. I'd be curious to hear from you all checking out this video. Are there any Jaylen Brown destinations that we didn't talk about that you think teams have assets for that would want to win now, so would trade for Jaylen Brown, but also would be like the right packages the right packages that would make sense for this team, this trade to happen. Because again, they got to be in that window of like, we want to win now. Like I was looking at Milwaukee, like maybe Milwaukee tries to make a move to get Jaylen Brown in there, but all of their assets are all over the place from like the Drew Holiday deal. And then there's some other teams with like some interesting assets available that are like, Portland's not going to pool together to win right now. And Orlando, like, was another team I was taking a look at, but I don't know if that makes sense with Paolo and Franz. Like that wing position is already loaded up on. So I don't know. I'm going back and forth on it, but ultimately, like, I know I said this at the top, I love Jaylen Brown, man. And it seems like he really loves Boston. There were some awesome clips going around yesterday. I forget what high school or school he was visiting in the city, but was just taking the time, like making people's days. And I know athletes do that all the time. And I'm sure the haters are going to be like, oh, yeah, well, he's in the off season. Like, what kind of... He doesn't have to do that. And he seems to be planting some roots here in Boston. I love the idea of having Tatum and JB here as long as possible. It's kind of a throwback to, like, I don't know how many people watch the Celtics documentary on HBO, but you look at these guys who spend their entire career in an organization. It's what makes Steph Curry special to the Bay Area. It's what makes LeBron special by jumping all over. No, not LeBron, but you know what I'm saying? Like having some real roots to an organization where you ride with them in the good and the bad, and the idea of keeping both of these wings who came in just a year apart in JB and JT. We watch them grow up together. We watch them get at least one title together. I don't know. I want to see them here forever, but I understand it's a business. It's not a sentimental thing. And we've got new ownership, and you have no idea if they want to be paying $200+ million a year in tax, not in roster, but in tax, to have a team that gets bounced in the second round. And it just pains me to see what's happening in the playoffs right now. As the Thunder last night clinched their series victory, they're moving on to the NBA Finals. And you look over at the Eastern Conference, and truly the only team that could have hung with OKC and like given them a real test, in my opinion, is the Boston Celtics. A healthy Celtics team would have caused fits for OKC. Not saying that would have been a guaranteed title, but I do think it would have been a long series. And you look at what OKC's waiting to see the Knicks and the Pacers, and I'm sure they're just like licking their chops, being like, that's a dub, that's a ring. So frustrating to see that. But we should end on a positive note. Tatum seems like he's healing up well. There we go. There's your positive energy. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Let me know. I know I already said this, but let me know in the chat. Is there a Jaylen Brown deal or package that you are actually excited about that you would attack? Or do we just keep them? And if you've made it this far without subscribing yet, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you know the next time we drop some sweet, sweet Celtics content. I'm Mike Zakarian. Thanks for hanging.